Hello and welcome to the Debt Dashboard. I'm Dr. Haley, and I'm so excited you are here with me now and you are ready to tackle your debt. Maybe you've been on this journey for a while and you've already been working on chipping away at your debt. Maybe you're just getting started now. It doesn't matter. You can use the Debt Dashboard to track the rest of your progress. So I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do and what you need to know to get started. Let's take a look at what you will see when you open the Debt Dashboard Google Sheet. You will see this, but your copy will have a view only tag up here. So you need to make your own copy, and you start by going to File, Make a Copy, and it will ask you what you want to name it and where you want to put it in your drive. You're going to make a copy, and that is the one that you will be able to edit. Now, it's important to know that you do not need multiple copies of this dashboard. This is one spreadsheet that you can keep for the entirety of your debt payoff. So it lasts 60 months, 5 years. So the goal is that you can be debt-free within 5 years, or if you need to extend it, you could always make another copy later. Now, the screen you're looking at right now looks pretty boring, but this will all change very soon. This is set up as your first tab because normally when you open this, it will have some interesting things to look at. But we're actually going to work in backwards order here. So the Start Here tab is far over here, and you are not going to use it very often. This is where this video will be linked. So maybe you've gotten to it from this page, maybe you've gotten to it from an email, but you can always come back to this video by clicking the link here. There are some other things to know on this page, and this is some stuff that you can scroll through and read when you have a moment. So the next thing you need to do to get started is go to your setup page. This is where you will be entering information about all of your debts, and this is a one-time activity. So you're going to set this up, and then we're just working off of this. Everything will calculate from here based on updates you make on a different page. The most important thing to know about this page is that there are red asterisks in different places pointing out things that absolutely need to be filled in. Otherwise, you are not going to get accurate information, or there might be some errors. So you want to make sure you're filling out anything that has an asterisk. So, for example, if you have a debt that has a 0% APR, you want to put in 0, even if that might change later. Don't leave this blank. And if you're just dying to get started here and you don't have all of your information, you have estimates, go ahead and estimate your APR at least. Like if you think it's a regular credit card that has an average APR, maybe say 22%. You'll be a lot closer than not filling it in or putting it in at 0. So in a second, I'm going to jump over to a version of this that already has this filled in for us, but I want to talk about choosing the first month of your plan. You'll notice that you can choose a month here and you can choose a year here. Now, it's 2026 when I'm recording this, but 2025 is in here for a very specific reason. If you started your debt payoff journey in 2025 and you have all of the statements, so your credit card statements that you could go back and access, you could backdate this and enter all of your data if that's important to you and you want to see your progress. You could go back and start in, let's say, I don't know, September 2025. And on the tracking page, you would enter all of your information for the past year. Now, regardless of if you're starting now or you've already been working on it, you are welcome to just begin now. So right now it's August and it's already August 6th. So if you know that there's no way you're going to be able to actually put this in action this month, like we're already into August, you're trying to make a plan, you're trying to get your budget together, you don't know if you're going to be able to follow through on making these extra payments to debt and things this month, and you're like, okay, September is the first month I'm actually going to be sending money to debt based on my plan, then just put September. Whatever you do, if you put August, that would mean that everything you enter in this table is based on July. So that means that your starting balance would be your July statement. If we say, okay, no, we're starting in September, we can't send extra this month, great. The August statement will give us our starting balance. It's where we started when we entered September. Now you need to choose a debt payoff plan. And so we have traditional ones like the snowball method, the avalanche method. We have a custom method, which simply means that if you choose 1 through whatever, so when I enter all of the debts in here, if I have 8 debts entered, this will then show numbers 1 through 8. And I would choose, okay, number 1 would be the one I'm targeting first. Number 2 is the second one, all the way through the 8th one. So you can choose numbers and say that you want a custom plan. This is for custom plan. And if you have custom selected here, it's going to go with whatever numbers you chose. Now, these other ones, the coaching plans, these are things that I oftentimes work with clients on, so I built them into this. And all of these plans, all of the options are down here for you to go through, and you can read through exactly what would happen if you chose the different coaching plans. And once you choose one of these from the drop down, it is going to magically reorder all of your debts and calculate things for you based on that order. All right, I'm going to switch us over to a version right now that has some debts filled in. Okay, so you will notice that I filled in 9 different debts. There's room for up to 30. And I've entered the minimum payments for all of those debts. I've entered the type of debt, and you will notice there is no asterisk here. This column doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't make any formulas do anything special. This is literally just your reference if you wanted to remember what something is. There's lots of options here. So that's just for you for your reference. You could leave it blank. Now the starting balance I've entered. Now remember, if we're starting in September, this is the August statement. So it's August 6th. I wouldn't actually know these right now. So that's why you might want to think about just entering. If I was doing this right now and I knew that I wasn't going to start till September, I could enter what I have now as my current balance. And then at the end of this month, when I'm really, really ready to go, I could go back in and just make sure they're exactly right and change them if they're not. As I said, make sure you have an APR listed here and ideally make sure it's accurate, but definitely estimate if you don't know. The credit limit is not required, but it is very helpful to know for your credit utilization ratio. And I will show you what that means. But if you can find it, so like this Capital One card, this is the balance, but this is our credit limit in this example. So you would enter that for what you've got. Notice that the car loan does not have like a credit limit. You can't charge extra things to you can't like charge gas to your car loan. Like if you've paid it down, it doesn't work that way. So we leave this blank. Don't put 0, just leave it blank. Now your monthly due date. This is where you might want to think through. Yes, I'm just randomly doing these. You might want to put these in order of due date. So the order you enter these into the spreadsheet here does matter for one of the screens that you will be looking at. And for me personally, I would choose to do them in order of due date because it's just going to be easier to think through, especially if you're using the budget spreadsheet. Like that's the order you would be paying them in. Now, yes, it is going to reorder them based on what you're paying more to on a different page. Okay, so it looks like we're all set up, but notice that up here for the total amount budgeted, I've entered the same number that is the total of our minimum payments. If I take this out, I'm going to hit delete. It's going to not be super happy in just a second because it's going to say, oh, the amount budgeted is too low to cover the minimum payments. So for example, if I had $1,200 there, it's going to stay in red because it's looking at this number and saying that's not even going to cover your minimums. So 1649 would put us at the minimums, but that's not going to help accelerate this process. And if you look down here, you'll notice that that's saying that it's going to take 6 years and 1 month to become debt-free, and we will end up paying $50,000 of interest on top of the balance. This is the total debt balance. So altogether, this is what it's going to cost to become debt-free if we pay minimums only, but still snowball everything, like still send $1649 to debt every single month for those 6 years, 1 month. Now, if you're thinking, wow, that doesn't sound that great, I really don't want to pay that much. Can we send more? That would be great. Let's try $1,700, so $51 extra a month to debt. It's going to start knocking off a little bit. And the more you knock this down, the more you increase this, it's going to start shifting. Now, let me tell you a quick story about the first time I thought I was going to pay off debt, years before I even got around to actually paying it off. It was when I was following Dave Ramsey and I was like reading his book, and he talked about this debt calculator online, and I went and found a free one, and I did all of this stuff where I was like playing around with the numbers. I'm like, oh my God, if I sent $3,500 to debt, I could be debt free in like 1 year and 11 months. And I would do that kind of thing and be like, this is such a great idea. I should totally do that. And this was like way more than I was even making at the time. So let's just, dial this back and realize that you actually would need to follow through on this in order for it to work. I don't know why, but I struggled with that concept of like how reasonable it was. Like it wasn't reasonable to send that much for me. And so my plan never actually worked. So the truth is you need to be doing a zero-based budget to know what your number is here. This number is all minimums plus the extra. So this is the total amount in your budget that you have available on an average month to send toward debt. And so to know this number for sure, you should be building out a zero-based budget if you're using an app like YNAB or my zero debt budget spreadsheet. And this will tell you what is available to send to debt beyond your monthly bills and expenses, gas, groceries, all those things, plus your non-monthly expenses like haircuts and holiday gifts and, that dinner for your colleague that you forgot you were going out to dinner for. Like all the things that actually cost money that we forget to budget for would go into your zero-based budget, and you would figure out how much you truly can allocate for debt. Okay, we have a plan. Right now, we are sending $101 extra to debt each month, and that's going to take us here. Now, maybe that's all we can rely on right now, and we're going to go with that and hope that maybe next year we're going to get that promotion or the new job, and then this can change. But right now, this is what we got. So now I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to skip over the monthly check-in. We'll go back to that, and we're going to go to the tracking page. And what you will notice is that all of the debts are numbered, and they are in the number that you entered them. So the one that was at the top of the setup page, the first one I entered was Capital One. The one right below that was Wells Fargo, and they were in order by the due date. So that is why I suggested you do it this way if that's how you think about your debts. I mean, if you think about them in alphabetical order, then maybe put them in alphabetical order. But they are all here in order that I entered them by monthly due date. And it will only fill as far as you have. So these will stay blank for the rest of the 30 that you're not using. Now, when you go to fill this out, remember that you can type on gray. This is what I do in all of my spreadsheets that I offer. So anything that's this light gray color, you can type on. Anything else, you'll get an error message when you try to do that. And you just say, oops, cancel. No, I didn't want to do that, because we don't want to overwrite any formulas. So this is where we're going to enter the September statement balance when that comes in. Remember, I said your setup page would have the August balance. That's because then it's going to go based on August. And now once you've paid money toward this debt, your September balance would show what you've paid. You will enter the total of any interest and fees that were assessed. If you want this to be like 1000% correct to the penny, I would recommend you enter this here. However, I did a lot of back end work here because I know that some people just simply are not going to do that. Like it's just one extra step and they're not going to do it. So to keep this accurate, it will calculate, like if this was our starting balance, 6872, and let's say we paid some money toward it and now the balance is 6,600. It is going to update the balance to be current. And on the back end, hidden, it's calculating the APR for this debt based on what the balance was, and it's assessing interest. So it's not going to magically look like you don't have interest fees when you do. Now, if for any reason, sometime during this debt has a change in the minimum payment changes or the APR changes, you can enter those here so that for the rest of the time going out, it's going to be calculating based on those new numbers. Let's head over to the dashboard now and see what we're looking at. You'll see there's a lot more going on now, and all 9 of the debts are stacked here. And the rest of these will stay open just like this for any debts that you're not using. Those will stay blank. And what you'll notice is they're in a different order now. They're in the order of priority. So this is the one that, based on the snowball method, which is what we had selected, this is the one that we are targeting first. So we are paying minimums on all of these other debts, and we are paying extra on this debt. So for example, when I jump back to the setup page for Home Depot, we can see that the minimum payment is $29, but we're sending that $101 extra to this debt. So when we take a look at the dashboard, you can see that we're actually sending $130 this month, and it won't be paid off in 1 month. So that means next month, we will also be sending $130 here. Let's pretend we've gotten to the point where this is actually paid down to under $130. So I'm going to show you what happens when we go over here and we find Home Depot. And let's say we've now paid this way down. It could be, months from now, but we're just going to pretend that's the balance. And what you'll notice is it will say that this month's payment, you only actually need to send this much. This is assuming that there's extra interest that was tacked on from the last month. And next month's payment is going to be 0. And the remainder is going to start shifting here. So we're sending a little bit extra here this month. And then the next month, we'll start tackling this one with the full snowballed amount. So you will see your donut charts start to shift over time. And this is the total of everything. So this is showing that we've paid this much toward debt based on the numbers I just randomly typed in. So, this is paid off. We've made this much progress toward debt freedom. It reminds us that our original goal, the way we projected it out, was January 2032. And right now, based on what we've paid, the projection is October 2031. So we are ahead of schedule. And that's because I wrote down random numbers. So whether or not you can actually do that in real life, that's a different story. But it will show you what your projection is based on if you've gotten behind schedule because, the fridge died, or you're ahead of schedule because you got a bonus. It's going to show you where you stand based on what you originally were hoping for, and your starting balance and your remaining balance. Now down here, you'll notice that you see these bars. And this is why I said it can be helpful to type in your credit limit for each revolving credit card or credit, whatever you have, right? So the car loan, we don't have this. That one will be blank over here, the car loan, because that's not a thing. But the rest of these will show you what percent of credit you're using. So if you're down here in this number, that's really great. That's excellent and low. A lot of these are much higher, so they're in the high range or the very high range. That's really normal when you get started, but they will go down over time and you can see your credit utilization improve. For each debt, you will also see the remaining number of payments and the individual projected payoff date for that debt. The important thing to know about this page is that there is nothing to do. Like, there's nowhere to type, there's nothing to change, nothing should be edited here. This is your dashboard to look at. That's it. So this is where you can find your information and see what's happening. Now, if I go over to my tracking page and let's say we actually paid this one all the way off, I'm going to show you what happens. If I say the balance is now 0, yay, it's now showing, okay, it was paid off in October 2026 because that's here. And just keep in mind that the projection for when something is slated to be paid off, those dates are meaning you're going to start that month with a $0 balance. So if this is projected to be paid off in February 2028, this is a different debt now. They've moved. This is not the same one that was there. So February 2028, that means that you will enter February totally debt-free. So you would make your last payment truly in January. So this is your debt-free month. Now, where did the debt go that we paid off? It gets bumped all the way to the end. So yes, we're going to scroll all the way down and you'll see the paid off is here, 0. It shows what your original balance was, how much you paid. And so it's going to give you all this information here. So all the ones that get paid off get bumped all the way to the end of the line. Now, what happens if you are working on paying down a debt, but then, life happens and there's an emergency and you have to charge something to it, right? So what if this now goes to like $6,900? What you're going to notice is that in a second, it turns red. And that is just your indication of like, this went up more than whatever the interest and fees should have been based on APR. So like heads up, there were extra charges there that weren't paid off. And maybe you know exactly what they are, or maybe you're like, geez, what did I spend? And that's your reminder to go check on that. Now let's take a look at Wells Fargo really quick as an example. Let's say that my statement balance, I know that it came back as $34.75. Like that was my statement balance in September. And it's like, wow, it didn't really change that much. But I do know that interest and fees came back assessed at $68. So when I jump over here and look, what you'll notice is that I paid my $78 payment, right? So this month's payment is $78, next month's payment is $78. That's what I've paid so far. $68 of it went toward interest. So that's why this current balance is only different from the starting balance by $10. So whether I enter that in manually myself, so on the tracking page, I entered the 68, or if I leave it blank, it's going to be pretty close, as you can see, that the 2 cents, it would show up that if I had paid however much I had paid and however much interest was accumulated, it's going to be close. If you want to be like correct to the penny every single month, that is why you want to enter the interest and fees yourself. All right, and finally, let's check out the monthly check-in page. So this page, I would say, is totally optional. This does not affect your dashboard at all or your numbers or anything. This is your motivation and inspiration page because like debt payoff can be a really long, difficult journey sometimes. So let's talk about how this looks and where to find what you need. This looks terrible right now because you need to enter a month 1 dropdown to make it change, and we will do that in a second. So the starting line, right when you begin, if you are ready to go and you want to get going on this, these are questions that I suggest you answer now because you're going to want to come back to them later when you're having a really hard month, like 8 months from now or 2 years from now or whatever, and you're like, oh my God, this is taking forever. You're going to want to come back and read your answers for like, why was it important to you to become debt-free? And what is it going to look like for you? What are you imagining? What are you going to use all your money for, right? Because if you pay off a debt snowball, you can then build a wealth snowball. Like think about all the money you're sending to debt now. What are you going to do with that every month when you finally don't need to send it to debt? So these questions are here to prompt you with that. And then at the bottom, there's a debt freedom declaration. And I just think that's really important to give yourself the compassion to choose you and choose to not worry about shame or guilt or anything like that, because you're worthy of all of these things now, like regardless of what your debt balance is. So we're not going to worry about what's happened in the past. We're making a plan and moving on and working through this. Like you've got this. So if you are ready to get started on this, you can go ahead here. And then in your first month that you start paying, these months will show up here, September, you would say, okay, I'm just getting started. How motivated do I feel? Maybe you feel really motivated. Notice how this has now shifted once we have at least one data point sitting right here. And then how much energy do I have? Like, am I really exhausted or am I really drained? And maybe you're like, I don't know, so. How high is your stress about money? Well, I'm actually really stressed about money. Like everything seems really high as far as all this debt, and I'm worried about it. Okay. How confident do you feel managing your money? Maybe you're like, nothing has worked in the past, so not so great. Then everything down here, you would fill in. These are just open-ended questions, same for every month. Anything you want to track or keep or just make note of, like, the fridge died this month, or I got a birthday check of this amount, or whatever it was, or this was the month that we started doing like freezer meals and started saving on groceries. Anything you want to remember, you can write that down there. And what you'll notice over time when you start tracking these is that your chart will start moving. So hopefully the goal would be your stress is starting to go down, your confidence is starting to go up. So you can, and over time, these will track and chart so you can track your motivation, energy, stress, and confidence. And as a reminder, this is what I would suggest you use for your rating scale, just so that each month you're consistent in what number you're choosing. All right. I am so excited for you as you get started with debt payoff and tracking it. And I hope this really helps with your motivation to keep going, even when it seems like nothing's moving that much. It is. Every little payment, every little change, every dollar saved makes a difference. And as a reminder, Money Freedom Club is here for you. So if you want to join us in there, this is the link to get started. It is free with your purchase of the debt dashboard. So that is where I pop in and do some coaching. That's where you can also find my private podcast episodes. We also talk about like overspending and, working through all the emotions related to money and fears or limiting beliefs around money. So it's a great community and there's always something new going on. We do a monthly challenge that's totally optional, but can help you stay focused. So if you're looking for some support from people who are in a situation probably very similar to yours in certain ways, I'm sure there are threads that run through everybody's story that show up with my clients. So this is our place to all gather and support each other. All right. I hope you have a wonderful day.